Hello everyone, my name is Vernisa.
Hey y'all, this is Jen.
And this is our podcast, Speak Up. What's up, Jen?
Hey girl.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm okay also. It's a lot going on. So we're going to jump into that today. For those you don't know, me and Jen are best friends, and we created this podcast to use our voices to motivate people to overcome life's challenges through self-love and respect.
Yes, by now you guys should know that we are huge advocates of self-love and respect, and that's something that we're going to continue to carry on with us forever, and we think that now more than ever is when these two traits are needed around the country, the globe, everywhere.
Yes. So Jen, what's our title today?
Today our episode is called Use Your Voice. There's no episode number or anything. This is a special episode specifically for what's going on right now. So we definitely needed to speak up on this issue and use our voices, right? So, Vernisa, do you want to tell us what this episode's about?
Yeah, so me and Jim been having this podcast for a while now, and obviously, it's very important that we use our platform for reasons like this, to get, make an impact in the community, to be the voice of the community, and unfortunately, you guys know what's happening with George Floyd. Rest in peace. I feel like this is a heavy topic, but a topic that needs to be discussed. We have a various of things that we want to talk about in today's episode, but we definitely want to send our condolences to his family. Police brutality is a huge topic that has been affecting Black lives, our lives, for a mighty long time, and it's just sad that it had to come to this. I can't believe, how long that officer was on his neck. Honestly, I didn't even watch the full video. It was too traumatizing to watch because I'm at a point to where, it's sad how these videos are being surfaced over and over again and we're forced to watch this. And it's like, all I can say is I'm glad that people are finally speaking out about this. Mm-hmm. And it just sucks that it took this for it to get to this point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's really sad that we're in 2020 and we still have to fight for Black lives. This is crazy, Black lives are human lives, and we should have been abolished police brutality against Black lives specifically a long time ago, and the fact that this is still an issue this day and age, it is mind-boggling to me, honestly. And then you have a good point with saying passing these videos of George Floyd and other Black men getting brutally murdered, by the cops specifically as well. It is very traumatizing to the Black community, and I don't think that is helping the Black community in any healthy way. Yes, it's good to have awareness, and obviously the fact that we can have this on record makes a big difference, but I think there comes a point where we can't just continue traumatizing the Black community, especially for those of us who are not Black. We can't continue hurting the Black community in this way, so we need to find healthier ways to empower the Black community.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, to stop violence as a whole, because not only are Black people, being murdered on camera, but they're also being, a lot of violence is being done towards us on camera. I've seen videos of police officers, beating up Black queens, beating up Black queens. I mean, my dad, he used to tell me stories about when the cops would harass him as a Black man, just think, he'd be minded, experiences he went through. Mm-hmm. And back then, they weren't recording things and stuff like that, so it makes you wonder what is being done off camera. We have this video surfacing, but there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes that aren't getting that attention. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what makes it even more problematic. So I just think as a whole that all this needs to stop.
Absolutely. And I think also, instead of recording what's happening, why don't we do something to stop it? Why aren't we intervening? I know this can be the bystander effect, thinking somebody else is gonna do it, right? Somebody else is gonna step in. But it's if you have the power to sit there and record something, why don't you also have that power to step in and do something? I know it's easier said than done, of course, but at the same time, it's this is, I think, one of the biggest problems that we're just here witnessing these things happening, but there's no change happening. So that's why I'm glad the Black Lives Matter movement became as big as it did, because this is a global issue. This is something that should be as known as it is. And I know there was a movement happening a few years ago, and it lost momentum. And I really like how this time it's bigger. A lot more people are stepping in and speaking up. But the thing is, it has to keep going. We can't just continue to let this, be a 1 week thing and then that's it. And then I do want to put this out there before anybody, starts anything, before we even start this episode. We can't say all lives matter until Black Lives Matter, okay? And this is coming from me, specifically because Black lives are human lives. They are the voices that are being disproportionately affected by police brutality. We need to focus on those who are in danger, and right now it is Black lives. So this should be our priority. So if you are saying all lives matter, we never said Black lives matter more than all lives. We're saying Black lives matter right now, specifically because of what's going on in history, what has been going on in history. The Black community has been oppressed for hundreds of years. And we need to do something about it. And it takes a whole global movement. Everybody who has a voice needs to speak up and do something about it. So I did want to put that out there because Black lives are in danger and we need to do something about it.
Yeah, that is so true. And shout out to the people who are constantly checking people who are saying all lives matter, because, I'm going to be real, when every time you say all lives matter, you're just blurring out the Black lives of it. In a day, like, it's, our issues have always been placed at the bottom, and honestly we're tired of that, because when you say all lives matter, all you do is put more stuff on top of it. I talked about this yesterday on a live, like back when I was talking about Black women in the past, like having to pick between their race and their gender. If they marched with the feminist movement, it was like, okay, their race was left out of it because they were like around a predominantly white crowd. But then when they marched with the civil rights movement, being a woman was left out of it because at the time women didn't have as many rights as they did. So it's like the same idea in that aspect, that the identity of Black lives isn't being represented when you say all lives matter. It's not being put at the part. It's not being prioritized like it should be. So kudos to those people who are out there who are really making an impact and like correcting people. And it's sometimes some people just don't know, and I think it's important that we just all educate each other, because you got people who just being ignorant, you got people who just really don't know. And I think if you're nicely making somebody aware, you're making an impact by doing that.
I agree. And kudos to everybody who is speaking up, whether it's in your household or within your friend group, or actively on social media or protesting on the front lines. If you're using your voice somehow, major kudos to you. I think this is something that should be going on. But I also wanted to bring up the fact that there's a lot of combos going on behind the scenes. Speaking from personal experience, I've had a few Latino acquaintances and friends DM me about other issues that don't have anything to do with the Black Lives Matter movement, or rather it's tainting the Black Lives Matter movement. So I think this is something that needs to be addressed, in the sense where this is exactly why we need to keep Black Lives Matter at the top. Because when we're focusing on everything else, like the looting, the violence and everything, you're again erasing Black voices. You're erasing the whole point of why we're even fighting for Black lives to begin with, because now you're just letting yourself be consumed by all of this stuff. Don't get me wrong, I don't condone looting at all, especially when you're hurting other small businesses, maybe other Black small businesses as well. But at the end of the day, we need to keep the focus on why we're fighting for Black lives to begin with. So, if you've been one to DM me about the looting and everything, I've responded to you and I've told you what my opinions are and about it. But I'm also putting it out there. I don't want to talk about the looting. That is not my priority. I am all about Black lives being amplified right now and getting their voices heard. So this is what my focus is on. So do not dare come at me with those type of DMs, because I'm no longer having that conversation.
Yeah, because honestly, we were fucking tired of the focus being placed on everything. Honestly, this is just a time to be focused, on the real intention of this. We got people who are looting, who are not even a part of the movement. Don't even care what's going on. They just want to do things for their personal gain. So it's very important that we stay focused on what's going on. Don't let that deter you. If you want to go out there and protest and make an impact, don't let what you see on TV deter you from that. Make sure you do your proper research before going out there. And I want to say too, going back to what you're saying about the private conversations, people, we got people who, what's the word I want to say? they know racist people, I'll say that. And there's a lot of private conversations going on. Let's be real. People, I don't know, people probably do be having those. And if you're one of those people and you witness one of those conversations, put that person in check, you know, educate them, break it down, because by you doing that one thing, I'm not saying you completely change a person, but you might get them thinking, you know, at least you know you did your part. That's an example of combating racism, because in the day you're putting your foot on the gas to, you know, make a change towards it. Even if I can't say you completely change somebody's mind on it, but you somehow bringing awareness to the cause.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're not staying silent, and I think at this point nobody should be staying silent. If you're hearing these types of conversations in your household, in your neighborhoods, anywhere, please speak up. Do not be afraid to correct, like, maybe not even, or there is no other choice. You need to correct that person. You know, I specifically speak for the Latino community also. I know I have a few family members who, you know, they use certain terminology that's not okay, you know, and that sucks, because there is a lot of anti-blackness going on in the Latino community, and we need to speak up against that. Because first of all, let's get educated and find out about our African roots in Latin American countries. If you have not done your research, you need to go and do it, because yeah, let's start there. And then second of all, you know, a lot of Latinos are so quick to say, well, you know, brown lives matter and blah, blah, and all this stuff. Yes, but we need to check ourselves too, because we are adding to why Black lives are being oppressed, and why this continues to be an issue within the entire country, within a global scale. Okay, so we need to check what kind of terms we're using. If we're non-Black Latinos, please don't use the N-word, okay? It's not okay. It's never been okay. And then also just check what family members are saying to you, you know, and just watch also kind of what they're watching, you know, because a lot of our Latinos are getting their information from big news networks, and the mainstream media is only going to show you what they want to show you, right? So if your family members are getting their news from there, check them. Right, educate them on what the reality is as well. I mean, when we're talking about the protesting, also, there's way more peaceful protests than there are violent protests. And a lot of those protests don't even get violent until the cops get involved. And we wonder why we're speaking up against police brutality, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to be real about the news. Like, you know, I don't even watch the news, but there's times I sat, you know, and just kind of tuned in for a little bit. And I literally, like, they're just looking for the action. Like, oh, something's going on here. They're add on, you know, more than what's going on. And I think that's the problem, because it's actually deterring people from wanting to protest. It's make people look at protests a certain way. And what it is taking the focus off of the cause. And I think it's just giving people a name, like, look, this happened. These people are crazy. No. Like, you know, and they think for yourself. Learn how to think for yourself. I think it's power when we do our own research, we have our own knowledge, and we think for ourselves. We listen to our spirit. I feel like that's one of the first things. Like, pray about it. You know, listen to your own intuition before making a big move. You know, if it's in your spirit to go protest, do it. If it's in your spirit to protest a different way, do it. But honestly, don't let others think for you. And I also want to talk about police brutality a little bit. Honestly, too, when I've witnessed people, like, you know, I've seen things online where, you know, when somebody, like somebody Black, you know, gets beat up or something by the cops, they're quick to say, well, what were they doing? What was the purpose? You know what? Fuck all that. You know, I'm fucking sick of our Black kings and queens fucking dying on camera for no reason, unarmed, you know, or whatever, not resisting arrest or anything, and they're fucking losing their lives to this shit. I'm so tired of it, you know. And people who are non-Black that don't understand this pain, take the time to understand the pain. Like, you know, I'm sick of having to explain why you feel a certain way, you know, why, you know what I mean? Why does it affect me? Why? I don't have to fucking sit there and explain that, because it's not happening to you. But you take the time to research and understand why it's affecting. Cause, you know, put yourself in our shoes for a second. That's one thing I want to say. Like, you know, think about if somebody of yours died from the police, or like one of your kind died from the police, if they're around you, if you're fearing for your life. You know, that's an important thing to keep in mind. And I think a lot of people just don't want to take the time to have that sympathy and want to look at it from the broader picture, and just take the focus on what happened to the Black life, and focus more on, well, what were they doing? Well, why did the cops stop them in the first place? Honestly, a Black person ain't got to do nothing. They just dying in plain sight, and I'm just tired of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's not up to the Black community to educate us, honestly. Like, there's so many resources available, ways to get educated. Like, and we talk about this all the time too. If you don't know where to start, ask. Do not be afraid to ask. How can I get educated? How can I help? How can I just change the narrative, right? And even going on like the fact that Black lives are human lives, okay? You need to care about other human beings, and the fact that maybe you're privileged enough to not directly be affected by this, take the time to use your privilege to defend another human life, which is a Black life. You need to remember that we need to stick together. There is power in numbers, and the more help, the more allies the Black community has, the stronger this can be, and the faster we can beat this. And if that doesn't bother you, then you need to question your humanity, because at the end of the day, this is everyone against racism fighting for Black lives. You need to care about this situation. If you don't, we don't want you around, but please keep your opinions to yourself. You are part of the problem in that case. But don't be adding to the negative information that's already out there. We have enough of that already. Let's amplify why we're fighting so hard for Black lives to matter.
Oh, well said, best friend. And I want to say it's just beautiful to see how much non-Black support is out there. Honestly, this is needed. Black folk, we've been fighting, we've been doing this, but you know what I mean? But it's beautiful to see more unity. Other countries, Hong Kong, New Zealand, like, that's what I'm talking about. That's what we need. It sucks that it took all this, but you know what? We need to do what we got to do. And I'm just happy like it got to the point of this. To the point of the support, Also want to talk a little bit. So it just slipped my mind what I was going to say. Oh, acts. Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. So as far as the acts and the questions, honestly, Jay made a good point with that because it's very useful. I've had a couple, non-Black friends reach out to me. What can I do to help? Do you need me to pick you up from the protest line? Do you need this? Do you need that? Like, that's the kind of support we're talking about. Just knowing that you're there, that you're checking up, because any other time I get checked up on, but it's beautiful to see that during a time like this, I'm getting those phone calls, I'm getting that. And then when you ask simple questions like that, it brings about healthy discussions, and you hear it firsthand. What could you do to help? Don't ever be afraid to ask that, because in the day when you just assume and then you just don't do anything about it, that's you being silent. But accent goes a long way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen this going around. There's a point where silence is betrayal. There's a point where silence is violence, right? So, yeah, if you're confused, you don't know where to start, ask. Use your voice, right? Continue to ask questions, because, some people really don't know. Some people really are just not aware of how far police brutality goes against the Black community. So educate yourself. But if you don't know where to start, ask all these questions. The point is, we need to stay focused on this movement. We need to continue fighting this fight, and we need to not let the Black community do this on their own, okay? Because again, there is power in numbers. They need us all the way, okay? And any way that you can contribute helping, you don't necessarily have to be out there protesting. I get it. We're still in the middle of a damn pandemic. There's people who have newborns, who have elders in their household. They're just around vulnerable populations that could be exposed to this virus, So maybe you have your reasons for not protesting, but protest in other ways. I've seen these things going around about like virtual protesting. Use the MAGA KKK hashtags to flood their news feeds with all Black Lives Matter posts and awareness and resources. That's a way of virtually protesting without you having to expose yourself out in the physical community. That can go a long way, honestly. Also, there's a lot of different factors that we'll go into obviously throughout the episode, but I just wanted to put that out there that protesting isn't the only way to help out the Black community.
Yeah, and that's true. And honestly, I was out protesting in LA, and it was people out there passing out water, passing out snacks to the protesters. Like, they weren't directly protesting, but they were still making an impact because they were making sure the protesters had resources, stuff like that. If you're a photographer, you're out there catching those moments. That's making an impact because you're showing what's really happening. Because I'm gonna be real, the media is changing up the story, but if you're out there getting the real story, that's people who do journalism. Shout out to Slauson Girl. Tina, thank you, girl, for, yeah, she's out there, on the front line showing what's going on, spreading real news, things like that. I want to say, too, I want to talk about protesting for a little bit. Honestly, protesting was nothing like I seen on the TV. I'm going to just say that. Honestly, it was a very empowering experience. They made it seem so like all this stuff was going to happen. No, like what I like is, we were able to pray together as a big group, stand on the front line, hold up our signs. We're getting so much support from the traffic, people driving by. I mean, some cops were honking or whatever, but some were looking at us crazy, whatever. I wasn't worried about that. I'm trying to get my message, but I felt good to be out there and stand out there, and just be able to like let my voice be heard, and what I want to say is too, if you plan on protesting, please be very careful. Honestly, know what group you're gonna go with. Go with a group of people. I would say go with like 2 to 3 people. Wear comfortable clothing, wear comfortable shoes. They prefer you don't wear contacts. If so, please wear your sunglasses, because just in case of tear gas popping off. Please drink water. I want to say too, have like friends who know exactly where you're located, just in case you need to get picked up, stuff like that. Have numbers written down, little things like that. But I feel like as long as you play it safe, if you feel a vibe popping off and you don't feel comfortable, leave. Park your car away from the front line, park super far away to where you can, still walk to your car. And I think those are just things just to keep in mind. And I want to say too, talk to somebody who has protested before you go out there, because I feel like if you take what you see on the news or just some social media posts, it's not enough. You need somebody who's been out there and they can tell you exactly their experience and a good spot to go. But other than that, it's a really good experience. And like I said, and like Jim was saying, if you're not physically out there protesting, there are ways to protest, like blacking out the internet, not shopping at these huge corporations, supporting Black businesses, donating to causes, signing petitions, voting. All those things play a part in this.
Exactly. With protesting, I also wanted to bring up the point, do your research on a protest. Don't just follow any single one that you see, because I've seen a few that they look sketchy, and then it turns out that they're organized by like white supremacist groups who are holding traps, for people planning to go protesting. So just make sure, obviously we've heard about like the professional antagonizers within these protests as well, or undercover cops, so just make sure you're doing your research. But also, if you do want to go out and protest, do it. Honestly, it's something empowering, like Vernisa was saying. So definitely, if you've been thinking about using your voice in that way, definitely go ahead and do that. But yeah, there's definitely other ways to use your voice. Share as many resources as you can. I mean, for me specifically, mental health is my forte, right? So I've been sharing some mental health on Black mental health resources, and I'm constantly doing my research on what virtual sessions are being held so that I can pass on to the Black community, and also just what empowering videos can I find about Black leaders and things like that, and I've been posting those. So yes, use your voice in any way that you can help. I've also donated to Black businesses. I've donated to funds that are going out specifically to like the victims of police brutality. I've also signed, I don't even know how many petitions at this point. Of course, voting is one of the biggest things that you can do to use your voice, especially at the state and local levels, because that's where our voices really, really count. I know a lot of people think about voting, they think about like the big presidential election. But honestly, it starts at the bottom. That really starts to make changes at the top. But if us young people are not voting, then guess who's still voting and whose voices are still being heard? It's the older generations. And they're the ones who continue to vote for the same laws that get passed that we don't agree with. But why? Because we're not representing ourselves by voting in these smaller elections. So make sure you do your research on that as well, like who are your council members in your state, and then within your districts as well. So please continue to do your research. Do not give up on this, because it's not going to change with just posting and making it trendy and these videos going around. We need to have actual changes. We need to put our actual voices into this movement.
Yes, and like Jim was saying, those smaller votes matter because they interact directly with the constituents, which they have more access to the higher parts of government. People think the president has so much power. There's actually checks and balances within that. And obviously all of our communities matter. So please take that time. And then like Jim was saying, like supporting Black businesses, honestly, your you're making a bigger contribution when you do, because it's directly going to victims of all this, of what's going on in our communities, especially with the looting. I feel like some Black businesses were affected by this, so just, if you can, there's probably websites out there that specifically show business that was affected by it. So that's very important. And also, like Jim was talking about mental health, I think it's important we talk about that. With your mental health, honestly, take this, don't forget to take care of you. That's one thing, like me and Jen, we always talk about in every episode, but it goes with anything in life. Always take care of you. Our last episode was Create and Chill. We talked about tapping into your creative side, which is a good stress reliever. And you have to be working on your stress, especially during a time like this, especially if this topic is making you emotional and angry inside, because in a day you have to, tap in with yourself to be able to think clear in a time like this, to know how to act on it. And also, don't be afraid to take a break from social media. You don't have to sit there and scroll and take it all in. I had to take plenty of breaks from it, because it's a lot. Seeing, what's going on in my community, just seeing like the Black face, all that stuff, that's a lot, you know what I mean? Especially when it hits close to home. So don't be afraid to just sign off, take a break, take a breather, post every now and then, make your impact and log off. That is completely fine. You're not, what's the word I'm saying? That's not you being silent by taking a mental break for yourself.
Yeah, don't ever feel guilty for taking the break to rest and recharge. We need you, right? And if you're not your best, if you're not, sleeping, or you're just so overwhelmed by all of this because you're stressed out, which of course, you have every right to be. But, yes, take your breaks. Don't ever feel guilty for taking that break and feeling like you're not doing it enough, or, do I even deserve this break? You absolutely deserve your break. Especially, I want to say this to you, and to everybody, the whole Black community out there. You guys deserve to take your break as well, let your allies help you as well, continue to fight for you. And then, allies also take your breaks too. I know I needed my breaks at certain times as well. But when I'm back on it, I'm like, going hard and like I said, constantly researching, seeing what I can do to help. But yeah, we're always going to encourage rest and recharge, because that's the only way you're going to be able to be your best and be of any use to this entire movement. So yeah, we wanted to put that out there, that don't ever feel guilty for needing that mental health break.
Yeah, and going off with, this relates to mental health too, is partaking in healthy discussions. I feel like us as a Black community, we don't get to let out our anger, get to vent, find a healing circle. Some people are going on live and they're just having discussions and letting people tap in. I've done a couple, and it was actually empowering to let other people join my life and talk about their experience protesting, or just let out anger, like about the situation. I feel like we don't get a chance to just speak. Me and Jen do this all the time. This is our platform. We talk on it, but it's something. It's stress relieving for me, being able to sit here and talk and make an impact. So don't be afraid to find, even if it's just a healthy discussion with a close friend, with a family member, on some type of social media platform, like a healing circle, a Zoom. There's a lot of Zoom discussions going on, even if it's just listening to something, some soothing music. Partake in these healthy discussions, because I feel like you feel so much better when you find somebody who has the same mindset as you, and the same pain as you, and understands you emotionally, and you can let that out. Because some people, I'm gonna be real, don't understand what you're going through emotionally. Some people don't understand the pain of what we're feeling. So it's important to find a group of people that you can speak to in a healthy way and not be judged by how you feel.
Exactly. Yeah. Very well said, honestly. Again, there's so many resources out there for every type of impact that you want to make. There's a lot of activism art going around that I've seen that's so beautiful. Like Renisa mentioned earlier, there's photographers. So if that's your outlet, there's a lot of healing sessions specifically tailored for that as well. So just try and find your healing circles that you can find. And I know a lot of these things have to happen virtually, but they do exist. There's so many of them. And I also did want to mention that we need to continue fighting this fight, even when it's not trending anymore, even when it's not, the number one thing of the week or anything. Please continue to voice about this. Continue to amplify Black voices, because there's nothing done if we just forget about it, or if we're like, okay, well, we did our part, I took a picture, or I donated a little bit. No, continue, please continue to correct the conversations. Continue to donate, continue to fight, please, because this is something that's not going to happen tomorrow. Unfortunately, it probably won't even happen for maybe some months. I don't know, depending on how fast things go. But please continue to put this as a priority, because again, there is power in numbers and we need everybody's voice in this. If you started off strong and you're kind of falling back a little bit, maybe you need your rest, go ahead, but please come back strong again, okay? I know it's getting to the end of the week, but we need to continue fighting this fight. It ain't over.
No, I agree. And I want to say too about that, people think, change comes in one big ass step. It's those micro steps that matter. And as I just said, we have to keep going. We're in a time things are trending and this and that. And I'm going to be real, just because some racist cops are fired doesn't mean all of them are fired. Mm-hmm. There's still people who haven't acted on their racism. And I think that's really something important that we should keep in mind, because that's why this is something that could constantly has to be checked, going forward, and I want to say too, even with just this week, it's only been a full whole week of all this protest and everything going on so far. We're already starting to see small change, like the curfew being lifted, things like that, because people are starting to hear the message and seeing how serious we are. More corporations are understanding the fight, because a lot of people have been starving these corporations, and I feel like sometimes you got to hit people in their pockets for them to wake up and hear your message. Mm-hmm. But then we got to do what we got to do, but we have to be strategic and smart about it. Mm-hmm. Stay organized, stay educated, stay knowledgeable. All those things matter, because I feel like if we just act completely out of emotion, we're not going to be thinking clear. And I just feel like stay around those people who are constantly making an impact and are, just being the best leaders that they can be.
Yeah, stay strong, stay loud. We need you. Even the mayor has had influence, based on all the fights that we've been putting up. So, it's obviously showing, but like we've been saying, you need to continue doing this. You need to continue surrounding yourself with people who are, going at this all the way. Because it's not going to go away unless they still see that everybody's fighting strong. Starving these corporations has made a huge difference. When you hit people in their pockets, they start listening, right? Okay, how can I make this better? So that has been helping a lot, but we got to do more. This isn't over yet. I also wanted to bring up the fact that some people are saying oh, well, I'm nice, I've never done anything to anybody or whatever. Being nice doesn't mean you're not racist. Yes. And I'm not trying to offend anybody, but again, just because you're nice to people doesn't mean you're necessarily stopping racism as well. Mm-hmm. And if you're not stopping racism, you're part of the problem. Again. So this includes anytime you hear the terminology being misused in a household or within your circle of friends, or how you express yourself about black people in general, or if you're also benefiting from black culture, it is your responsibility as well to do something about it. I see a lot of people saying, oh, well, I have black friends, obviously I care about them and stuff. That's not enough. That doesn't mean anything if you're just putting up pretty pictures of, all your black friends or whatever. What are you actively doing? You can't just say this and then not do anything, in front of the scenes, behind the scenes, or both. It's not enough to just say, oh, I've been around black people my whole life or whatever. Okay, now what? What are you doing? So don't just be nice, okay? I want you to be loud. I want you to actively start making a difference, because you can't continue going on this way, pretending this isn't something you're gonna see, or oh, well, it doesn't pertain to me, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. It should bother you.
Yeah, because honestly, you got people who walk around with fake energy, you said, being nice for just to show, make a certain, but in their ideologies and their mind are extremely different. I've witnessed that. I've witnessed people who act a certain way, around certain crowds, but then treated me a certain way when we were in private. Honestly, this stuff is called microaggressions, and I think I want to talk about microaggressions for a second, because microaggressions are very dangerous. For those of you that don't know what a microaggression is, I don't have the exact definition, but it's basically when it's like a form of racism or form of some type of insult, but it's so tiny to where you can't even really pinpoint it, and that happens every day. It could be a little slur, it could be a certain look you give a person, little things that people do, but a lot of it is racist, and that happens a lot, especially in America. And that's happened to me a lot, happened to Jen before, and it's very dangerous, because I feel like you can't. It's so small to where you can't pinpoint it, and you can't really tell nobody or complain about it, because nobody will understand, because it's not like they just they purposely, like, you know, put their hands on you or did something big to where it's like, okay, that's a problem. It's so tiny to where you can't even really speak about it. So that shit has to stop too. Like, I'm tired of all this shit. Like, it's just a lot could go on it for a whole list, but honestly, we got to just stay on this topic, stay checking people on a daily, checking on our loved ones, checking on our community. You know, shout out to my friends who've been checking on me, you know, just, you know, making sure I'm straight, make sure I don't, you know, if I need anything, all that stuff goes a long way. Like, all y'all support is appreciated, you know, and we have to continue. It takes a movement, it takes a village, you know, for this change to happen. And I just really love where it came to for us, you know, all of us standing together in unity.
Yes, beautifully well said. I just want to say again to the Black community, I hear y'all, I'm with y'all all the way. I mean, you know, come on, I love you. So,
I love you too.
You know, like, you guys matter all the way. You know, Black kings, you matter. Black queens, you matter all the way.
Yes.
You know, we hear you, every single one of you. And, you know, even if other people are pretending not to hear you, I'm making sure that at least the people I know can hear you. So definitely, you know, Black lives matter all the way.
Yes, well said. Let's continue to uplift our communities and be there for each other. We wanted to end the episode with a couple resources, you know, that, you know, we know out there. We're going to list some of them at the bottom, so you'll see it in a minute. But the first one we want to shout out is the
Movement for Black Lives.
Oh yeah, the Movement for Black Lives. They're actually actively, if you go to their bio on their Instagram, it takes you to a website, and they're working on ways to defund the police and give it back to the Black community. So if you want to make an impact in that way, that is a perfect way to start. You know, I feel like there's already stuff being passed to, you know, like the budgets are coming out with the police getting less funding. So I think that's already a start towards something, because, you know, we shouldn't be using our money to pay racist cops. I'm sorry. Like, enough of that has to stop. And I think money is where it starts, you know. So if you want to tap in on that, we will be providing the Instagram name if you would like to go to the link in the bio and share that. Also, if you want to donate to a Black business, tap in with @Favor Fridays. That's FAVORFRIDAYS. The Homegirl Star. Shout out to the Homegirl Star. She's she usually raises money to you know, to feed the homeless in different communities, specifically downtown LA. But actually, during this time period, she's raising money to give back to Black businesses. So every time you donate to Favor Fridays, she will be randomly selecting different Black businesses that people are actually tagging and sending to her. She's randomly doing it. The money's going, all your donations will be going to a Black business. So just her name is Star, and if you go to her @Favor Fridays Instagram page, in the bio is the Cash App and different ways you can, different forms of payments for the donation.
And then I wanted to provide some mental health resources for the Black community as well. One of them is Ethel's Club. It's a social and wellness club. They host virtual healing sessions, specifically centering on Black lives. So we will be putting the name here. And we just wanted to, you know, shout out this resource because they've been doing an amazing job as well. And then there's also one called the NAP Ministry, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You know, I absolutely love this page. They focus on like the importance of naps and how naps can be a form of resistance, and it's just a pretty cool take on the power of naps. So I think it's pretty awesome. You know, and it can be quite liberating, so that's really cool. Also, we'll provide the name here as well as in the description. And then the last resource I want to provide is @Heal House. They're a wellness concept and cafe. They do various workshops specifically centered around Black lives. So the one that's coming up, is called Breath Work for Trauma, and basically how you know, through breath work we can start releasing trauma and actually just even talk about trauma in the first place. I said we, but you know, specifically for the Black community. You know, so, you know, definitely tap into them. We will be providing all of these names. You know, and these are just ways that we're trying to help, you know, spread awareness, and then let you guys know where you can start donating to, and then also get your rest and recharge, so that we can continue fighting this.
Yes, honestly, it takes all of us to do this, and feel free. Also, too, feel free to DM us any topics. Our podcast, Speak Up. This is a movement. We want to reach out to the community. We want everyone's voice to be heard. So if you have anything that you feel we should research, talk about, send us a message. And we will definitely get back to you. We really, if you have a business you also want us to shout out, especially a business who's helping out during this time, feel free to send us a DM. We will include them in our episodes. We appreciate all you guys. Speak up, use your voice, and be safe out there, everyone.
Yes. Be safe, stay healthy, continue fighting. We love y'all.
Love y'all.